We're learning over here. Here we go. We're tough pay Aleph. We're in Sif Beis. Now this halacha, there's a famous joke. What kind of tefillin did Rabbeinu Tam get for his bar mitzvah from his grandfather? Why is it a joke?
Because there was no such thing as a regular time tefillin up until that.
Yeah, but that's why it's a joke. So obviously, the joke is insinuating. So obviously, that Rashi's really the right shot, right? But that's the joke. But the reason why it's only a joke is because Rashi was left to Rabbeinu Tam was 7, so he didn't wear tefillin. He didn't get tefillin from his grandfather. Okay, but anyways, that's just so that we have situations where there are machlokes about things which we know what's going on, or we should know what was going on beforehand. Right? These are sometimes difficult things to understand. This is one of those. We have a rule. Except, and there's many exceptions to that rule. Okay, so right now we're going to see that we're having a machlokes about if that rule applies here or not.
It's not a shiloh for this big Knesset. It would be a shiloh for big Knesset according to my minute.
One more time?
It's not a shiloh for this big Knesset.
Why?
Because this base Knesset doesn't do Havdalah on Motzi Shabbos.
Oh, okay, but it'll be a question in your home too, right? We're in the middle. We're in the middle of a sentence, right? Okay, this Beit Knesset doesn't do Havdalah. Why doesn't this Beit Knesset do Havdalah?
The minhag.
Why in your shul do they do Havdalah? In my shul where I grew up, they made Havdalah. I was actually just there recently, and we haven't made Havdalah here for 20 years. What? Made Havdalah, and not only that, in a good Ashkenaz shul, I don't know if there's such a thing. You make Kiddush on Friday night too, right?
Always.
Yeah.
Always. We always do it.
Ask your grandchildren if they ever heard of such a thing.
Probably not.
Okay.
That's remarkable.
So now, but I just would like to just make a statement over here. Times have changed. Okay. Now, many minhagim were instituted because of situations which existed, and those situations are obsolete. And I will just use an example. It's clear in all the Rishonim until very recently, it means like 500 years ago, okay, very recently, everybody davened Ma'ariv before now. Everybody davened Ma'ariv. Why? Because they were scared to go out. Now, so when someone's going to say that my minhag is to daven Ma'ariv early, in my opinion, that's shtuyot. In other words, it doesn't mean, not that there's anything wrong, I'm not right now discussing whether there's anything wrong with daven Ma'ariv, but there's no minhag to daven Ma'ariv early. There were those that daven Ma'ariv early because circumstances. You understand? It's not a minhag. It's a necessity created by an environment cause certain things to happen. But that doesn't mean that it's holy. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm not really discussing right now, but it's not. What?
People called it in there
Because
of the fact that they did it all the time.
Yeah, I understand, but that's what I'm saying. But that doesn't. It's a misnomer.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean It doesn't mean that that's what even they held it that they're supposed to be doing in the source. You understand?
That I'm not sure. That means that's what I'm saying.
It's like listen. It's like a yeshiva bacher in America who says my minhag is to say Hoicha Kedusha. There's no such thing. But what do you mean? There's no such thing. You go to yeshivas and they do it. So I'm going to tell you something. The minhag in yeshivas of Hoicha Kedusha was because of Bittul Torah in the yeshiva. It wasn't because of any other reason. Now I'm going to share with you something which is fascinating, even though it has nothing to do with this, but it's important because you have to know how minhagim happen. Yaakov Kamenetsky in his Pirush on Pirkei Avos, which the shul owns but does not possess. How was that for a steer? It was bought because I asked that it be bought, and it's not here. So we own it, but we don't possess it, right? It's not here. It's not here. I'm looking for 2 years already. It's not here. Anyways, but we own it. At least we owned it, right? But whatever, probably somebody borrowed it and it's back. Whatever. That's anyways. So in that sefer, he has a piece. Yaakov Kamenetsky was a very orderly, svara kind of a person. He writes that when he learned in one of the Muslim yeshivas, they waited for the altar sometimes over a half hour, 45 minutes before they started. And the guys would have a seder and they'd learn all kinds of things, because they're waiting forever for this, for Shiva to finish davening. And then they made a Hachik Kedusha because of Bittul Torah. So this bothered him. You understand? I don't know if anybody can understand why it bothered him exactly. And he wrote the following piece. He wrote a piece. He says that the reason why this misfit exists is because this is a shtickle Torah which he writes. Really, we shouldn't be saying Chazar Sashatz because everybody knows how to tell. Right? But it's the meaning of a Sena B'Yadenu because there are Amoratzim, etc. I'm telling it to you in short, I'm skipping something, just a general idea. When you're in a shul. But when you're in a yeshiva, which everybody, in order to get yeshiva, at least that much you have to know to get into yeshiva. You have to know how to daven. Even though they don't fire you on that, well, we can assume that you know that much. So really, the place of the minig shouldn't be applicable over here. So we have an excuse, so we don't do it. Now, I will tell you, I don't buy it. I disagree. But that's fine. He's allowed to have his opinion. I'm allowed to have mine. His grandson, the one who put out the sefer, is somebody that I know personally. And I asked him, why did you print that piece? And he understood. They understood the reason why I asked that question is because I obviously didn't think that it was right. So he started to laugh and he said, it bothered my grandfather to such a degree. I had to. It really helped, Now, minhagim come from all kinds of places. Some of them are from, again, these kind of sources, and some of them are just because of necessity. So we're going to do certain things because people did it, but it could be it's being done, it's a mistake. But it's a mistake to say that's non-transferable to our environment that we're doing it. So you have to know, sometimes we have to change it. In the olden times, guests slept in the shul. And in all the Sifrei Halacha discuss lighting their Shabbos in the Ezras Nashim, the women who had to go to the mikveh, that they didn't have time to go back home, they would light in the Ezras Nashim, and that would be good because I'm not getting involved when I was there Shabbos, because that worked for the Orchim that were there. Kiddush was done in shul for the Orchim. What? And also Havdalah was done in shul for the Orchim. So I don't know, is there anybody over here that doesn't have an obligation to go home and say Havdalah for their wife? There's nobody here. Okay, fine, say it. But there's nobody here that needs Havdalah and shul, right? So the minig seems to me to be obsolete. No, it's not really part of the service of the service. It's part of the service of serving the community. Anybody in Kiddush and shul? So it was, being that Kiddush and shul has halachic problems with it, I'm not getting involved in those other problems. So that was the first to go.
Maybe someday again people start to use those.
Yeah, sure. It's fine. We'll do it then too.
Well, we do 2 days Yanta because someday we might need it.
So that's not exactly, but there was in the Mishna, the Gemara that says that's what you have to do. This is there's no direct chiyuv that you have to do something that way. Now I will just say, and I'm just going to mention this to you because I came across it last week. Sources. What's called a source? So last week I was involved in a subject and I came across a Bach that the Bach says if it says it in the siddur, that's a source. And therefore he forbade people who are printing students to change certain things in the siddur. Because that's called a source book. Okay? Now, again, I'm not getting involved in all these things. So Havdalah, we don't make Havdalah in Shul anymore. Why? Because why should we?
In Muncie.
And now, 1 second. If you wouldn't be here and we had a minyan, and I would say, does somebody want to volunteer to make Havdalah? Nobody wants to. Why? Because they're going to have a shalom bayis when they get home. Right? No, it's not. It's not. It's a practical thing. What happens in Muncie?
In Muncie, ever since I've been there and up to now, they make Kiddush on Friday night, they make Havdalah, so Shabbos, and even in Houston, Texas, where my son lives. So I don't know about Kiddush, but Havdalah, they definitely make.
Where I grew up, they made Havdalah in the Kiddush, and I'm just telling you that shul that you're talking about in Muncie is how old? So what happens is, I'm going to tell you there, when a shul is founded, so then it's supposed to be researched what to do and what not to do. But to change what's going on, we don't change. Many people, we don't change. We leave what's there in place.
That's right. That's what it's.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But no, it's not that they do it and others don't. They have grandfather clauses. No, it's not. Doesn't mean the same rabbi today, if he was starting a shul, don't know what he would do.
It's Rabbi Wine.
Yeah, but Rabbi Wine in particular could be did because that was always done. You understand? He's going to be, but that's not what's done today. Most shuls, I would say, in South Africa, I'm sure they still do it. South Africa, they're not changing anything. What? What to change? Or is it need over there? Okay. So this I would just, and this is I'll just mention this. I would like to make get something off my chest. Maybe I'm going to share with you something that I shouldn't. Maybe it's a little bit of Lashon Hara, but it's the Te'elis. In my father's shul, when he was Kiddush, so after the Kiddush, he made a bracha crying out loud. So we might see everybody. And I told him, I don't think you should do that. I didn't say it like that, obviously. But I said, I don't think you should do that. So he starts to laugh. And he says, of course I should do it. No, you understand that he already understood what I'm thinking. And the reason why you shouldn't do it is because he, in his bracha achrona, he says ala gefen and ala mechiyot. And then many people, most of the people in shul, then they have no gefen b'chlal. And then it becomes a question in the achronim if there comes a hefsek or not a hefsek. So I said, I don't think you should do it. Your people there are people that would be yetzel chatchila without getting involved in machlekes, and by you doing this, so you're causing them to get involved in machlekes. So he smiles and says, "No. What's the other side of the coin?" Right? He said there are many people that they're not going to make a bracha right altogether. So better be yetzel b'diavad vadai than what? That doesn't say vadai not. But okay, so that's the decision he made. What? So that was his decision. And I decided not to follow that approach. Yeah. So am I arguing?
That's the circumstances there.
So as I say, well, that's what your father was knowing. You're fine. You're fine. You know, it's not everything is chiseled inside. It's very important that I say this over because I'm going to share one more story on this subject because I believe it's important. When I lived in Lakewood, so the Shmuel was said Tfilas Haderech by the circle. It was a traffic circle, a certain traffic circle field, and that's where he said Tfilas Haderech. I once took Rav Nosson Vachweil, the Mashkiach, to New York. So here I have somebody live in my car, in my clutches. So from the first things that I asked as we were pulling out of Lakewood, I said, is it true that the Shiur Zatzal made that Tfilas Haderech by the circle? He says, make Tfilas Haderech right now. Make one, it was like, that's just clear. I didn't really get a clear answer from him exactly. It was clear that he didn't want that I should wait till the circle. I should make Tfilas Haderech right away. So I made Tfilas Haderech right away.
Are you still in the city?
Listen, I'm telling you. Immediately he fell asleep. And as soon as we got to the circle, he woke up and he was mumbling to himself. Just telling you what happened. I cannot promise you what he was saying, but it sure took about the exact same amount of time it took to say Tfilas Haderech. So, Rav Schneier said once on Baron Kotler, Baron Kotler learned in Slabotka. Slabotka was a place that they were very makbid on Kovod HaOdam. That was not to get involved in the historical reason for that. It was involved, very, very important. And Reb Aaron said that you shouldn't go to the non-man toll and throw in the token. You should go to the man place. The person shouldn't feel that he's replaceable with a machine. Okay? I think that today we're all at the place that we understand that the voice menu does not replace the secretary. I think that we've all come to that. So Schneier, who not only was Reb Aaron's son, but was a chassid of his father, was going to Lakewood, and the guy who was driving him had a token and was waiting online, and the man late. So Schneier you go. So he said, the Shiur Zatzal, every heritage that my father had is a halacha l'deros. Rosh is saying, so you have to know, tradition is important, but they has to know when is it important and when is it archaic. Okay?
So is it that what Ron says about that you have to be careful what you think that the reason for doing something no longer applies, to not changing all the same, but other reasons.
Halacha.
Not minhag.
Minhag, so I will tell you, minhag, it depends on what kind of minhag it is. This is very important, so I'm just going to, minhag, it's halacha. It's an obligation. In order to not do my machayim, you have to have an answer. I will just say the following. I sometimes, hope that nobody's going to say this over, will be asked a question, and I'll disagree with the Nigris Moshe, and I'll possibly not like the Nigris Moshe. Okay? If there's a Nigris Moshe that I don't understand, I don't possibly not like it. It's difficult enough for me to disagree with him when I understand him, or I think I understand him. But if I don't understand him, that's foolish to argue. You understand? Okay, this is the Ramah became a Rav in Krakow. This is an unbelievable story. And the first day he's there, he sees the Gabbai of the shul go over to a man in the morning and say, Mazel Tov. That's how it's no, there's nothing. The next day he goes over to another man. Says Mazel Tov, another man says Mazel Tov. It's after a few days. And there's no Mazel Tov going on. It's like a funny Gabbai, right? So the Ramah calls him over and says, what's going on? He says, the minhag in Krakow is that whenever a lady goes to the mikveh, in the morning afterwards, the Gabbai, whose wife was the mikveh lady, would go over to the guy and say, Mazel Tov. So for some reason, the Ramah didn't like the Sminik. It's a Shiur Ramah. He didn't like the Sminik. And he told them, no more. That's the job. The Rav is allowed to make such decisions. His minig they feel is improper, and he was Mavatal minig. The next day, some man goes over to the Gabbai and says, how come you didn't say to me Mazel Tov? So he said, because my wife didn't have any work last night. Got it? This was a check to make sure that the women went to the mikvah. How would you know? And the Gabbai came back and told the Ramah, and the minute was reinstated. Okay? Now, how come you didn't think of that reason for the minute? Okay? I'm just like, before you argue with a minute, but sometimes we know the reason of a minute. You understand that not all things are the same, and not all minhagim are minhagim.
That's good enough. Because you say the reason is the snake trying to grab from it.
Not necessarily from Melch's Dainus. That's a different issue. On Gilo is make one straight from it. But the different reason, and there the minig in Germany was to be Mako, and that's because they ate with a fork and a knife, according to some. And I just want to tell you something. I'm going to be very mean, okay? And there's nothing to do with this in particular. Whoever says that if you eat with a fork and knife, there's no need for mayim achronim is a liar. Why do you have napkins on the table? From what? But the reason why they have the napkins is one of the reasons to wipe your hands. If you only eat with a fork and a knife, what do you need a fork and a knife? What do you need a napkin for? So the answer to me is, it seems obvious that even though you mostly eat with a fork and a knife, but you also, at some point, may touch the food. No, I'm just saying, it seems to me, yes, if the reason why you have a napkin is to put it on your lap, but use that as a bib, I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about the napkin, they get used, right? From what? Huh? So you touch food, right? But anyways, lo mishnah, I'm not picking on the achronim who say, I'm not going against it. Just saying that it's not so simple to me that it's over, so to speak. Just that's my personal opinion. Anyways. Okay. Anyways,
in New Haven, when I was growing up, there was somebody who came to show who was not able to read Hebrew.
Yeah.
So they purposely made the kiddush, and his wife would come to the show to be able to hear the kiddush.
Fine. No, that's like this. There definitely are circumstances, but if you want to know, you want to institute something for the tzibur, is it really helping the tzibur? So sometimes you have situations that Balgadol, you want to have it in place for a safety net. I don't think that there's anybody in the last 50 years that ate mishul. I don't know. I just don't think so. Unless somebody that planned it, I'm talking about someone made a show of here. I'm not talking about that. That's not what happens. Usually there's somebody needs a place and you find some place to eat. That's not what was going on at that time. All right, anyways, the culture came b'meisod that you do it first. Why? We're going to skip the last line out for a second. Let's see the Mishna word. Even though Havdalah is Tadir, so it should go first. This is a fascinating idea. Why? Because it's chashiver. It has a chashivas. Right? It's Chal Toder, Makudish, Shagas Arya territory. So it's more chashiv. So it should get a more prominent place. If I say, okay, let's get out of here. No Shabbos. What does it say about Shabbos? How sacred is Shabbos to you? Very little. So the idea of Tadir, Rishena Tadir, doesn't apply to the situation. Because we want the statement I want to say about Shabbos is we want it to stick around for longer. There's a famous joke that said, yes, what's the question?
Say that.
Right. So what's the answer?
By delaying
Yeah.
That's chashivas.
So why does it why and if you make Tech Shabbos in early, Mamar Lava, what does that show? So there are many people that are belachats and they had a long week and they're waiting for the release of Shabbos. Doesn't show. So the only time that it shows that you're Marim Lavoi is if you're a Machanotzeis. That's one of the answers to the question. There are many answers to the question.
So you're showing how much you love Shabbos by doing something that you're not allowed to do on Shabbos.
That's not. One second. Was that a halachic question or a hashkafic question? So the answer is that there's no halachic problem. For whatever reason there is, it's already good enough. It's done. You're allowed to do it.
So you already said you're out of it.
You didn't do Havdalah.
You didn't do it formally.
You didn't do Havdalah. You didn't do Havdalah. Now it's an unknown, but if a person didn't do Havdalah in Tefillah, where certain things were Saimach on Havdalah ala Kos, and then we took it off, it's not a done deal. The Havdalah ala Kos sometimes is Ma'akiv. Certain things about Havdalah, if you didn't do things which are B'diavad, in Havdalah ala Kos, and that's a fascinating simon. Maybe one day we'll learn that too.
Quick questions on this Mishna Berurah. As in the reason we do the like candles first because we're not in rush to take a Shabbos. So number one, usually you take a Shabbos at 37 minutes after Shiur. So what's changes? You'll still take a Shabbos 37 minutes after Shiur, and then make up and then you light Hanukkah candles. And the other question is, once you light Hanukkah candles, you clearly show you took Shabbos out anyway. So I don't understand what it's the game.
Okay, I like both questions are very good questions, and I'm going to try to we'll start with the second one because it's easier to deal with that one first. You don't have to say everything out loud. Understand? Some things are implied, but they're not made a statement. When you say it out loud, then you made a statement about it. Okay, so yes, it's true, but
You haven't made up that.
you haven't made it. The statement wasn't made, so to speak. You understand? Now, that answers the question, which is really what Parrots asked before. Where Avada, you were allowed to do what you did, right? It's not a steer to Shabbos. When a person makes Havdalah, and I'm just going to tell you something that's fascinating. The minhag nowadays, if I were to ask you, when are you supposed to take off your Shabbos clothes?
Often.
Okay, the minhag nowadays is not before Chatzos. And you go to sleep at night. That's more or less, and it's the minhag from Tzidar, whatever, it has to do with carrying Shabbos longer. Chazon Ish, immediately after Havdalah took it off. Why are you being mevazi your Shabbos clothes by wearing them on Yom Chol? Because Judaism is like a difficult religion. Whatever you do, there's something going on, right? So there's a until you make Havdalah, it's still Shabbos, so to speak. That doesn't mean that malachas can't be done. There's certain kinds of malachas that can be done. This is Briskerov about this. Why is it that you're not allowed to do a malacha before Havdalah? Is it just like you're not doing malacha before any other mitzvah, or is it a Hilchos Shabbos kind of malacha? And whoever wants can look at the Briskerov and Sefer, a long piece on that. But the answer. The question is a very good question, but it's taken care of with a whole halachic formula. All right. The Gam Havdalah Yesh B'Sumei Nisa. And Presumanisa is something which trumps other aspects, and that could be a reason to make Havdalah earlier. Even though the other one is Tadr, but Presumanisa, what? No. Havdalah yesh Presumanisa. I'm sorry. And therefore it doesn't. And therefore, what? Bad luck. And therefore it trumped. It should trump it. Okay. You ever have the is a good synagogue, says V'itamacha, right? In this shul, they don't say V'itamacha. I'm not sure why. Stam for the same reason they don't say the David Baruch, right? What? They say it after Havdalah? Okay, that could be the result was after Havdalah. Yeah.
All the shuls in Malay Shabbos that I've been in don't say V'itamacha. And every shul I've been to in England does say. Maybe I thought it's one of the things that changed in Israel.
No.
In the Grush shul, so in the Myra from let's say Shabbos, they say it.
They say V'itamacha. In the Grush shul in Beit Hagan they say it. In Zichron Moshe they say it. In all old-fashioned good shuls they say it.
Have real explanation of why they don't say it here. The Rav probably won't like it.
Okay.
Because I heard that V'itamacha is to do with Parnasa. It's a prayer for Parnasa, but here the hashkafa is that people should basically be in full-time learning. So that's one of the reasons why they.
If you're learning.
Okay, if you know people that are full-time learning and they don't need Parnasa, that must be malach. That's as far as I know. All right.
No, I mean more going out.
So you doesn't say anything about going to work. Yes, you should have oil fields and you can have a lot of money without going to work. I know people do that.
It is linked to the Parnasa, the prayer. I made a mistake.
It has to do with Parnasa also. Okay, the culture came a Bayside. Sharei Kvar Hivke. Now, what does it mean? Shekvar Shama Avdallah and Mishabur has a problem. Udvar Mugum Gamen. I don't understand what he's talking about. Why? The Alonis Kavalotsis Avdallah shall stay up Sibur Shom Beza Knesses. Right? So, what does it mean that you're Avdallah? V'da da tazla kamachronim sha'im the b'shita asay pligal ikar dina shal machaber v'rambam. V'silo the mitzvahs Havdalah kodemes ner Chanukah. Tadr wins. V'shum b'dira. V'ayim b'bir halacha. Sheven sheyesh b'zeh deus ben rishonim. Okay, b'beis hakneses ein l'shanois. Haminok shenoagu b'yisol lahadik b'koydem b'achach lahavdil. Now, the next words in the Mishna Berurah are not so clear to me. If somebody would like to explain it, I'm more than happy to hear. There, in shul, you should do like the minik. Ubabai is the Ovid Kamar Ovid, the Ovid Kamar Ovid. You can, either way is okay. What's bothering me? No, that doesn't bother. What's bothering me is why he doesn't say it that home there's a minik. In shul there's a minik. And at home there's no minik. No. One should do like the minik. That's also you should like your minik at home. It seems to sound like to me from the Mishnah Berurah that a minik lo tofes babayit, and therefore we have a halachic question.
Lighting in the shul and lighting in the house.
But what were they doing? What did Rabbeinu Tam's grandfather do? When did he light the Hanukkah candle? Was there a minute or wasn't there a minute? No, I'm asking a historical question. Was there a minute in the home that was homogeneous with the minig in shul, or in shul they did a minig and at home was the Wild West? What was going on? I have a little bit of an issue. I could answer all kinds of guessing answers, but I'd rather not guess, at least not in public. Okay, but I don't really know the answer to the question. I'll just leave it as a question. It's something, so chesber. Now, I just say with Chaim Sonnenfeld, this is very famous. I'm not stopping till 9 o'clock. Chaim Sonnenfeld. And morning and afternoon. Yeah. Chaim Sonnenfeld, he instructed his wife to bring the menorah out to greet him. And therefore, because of Ein Mavir and Allah mitzvahs, they had to do Hanukkah candles first. Now, there are those, it's a fascinating thing. I mentioned last week that everybody's in big rush, Motzei Shabbos, Hanukkah to light on time because you got a chaparayim in the time that's the right time. And we discussed that maybe there's another way, but that the meaning in Klal Yisrael, and that's based on more or less what it says in our that's fine. That's what we're staying with. But that's the thing. There are those who want to light right away Hanukkah candles, and therefore they have two menorahs. On Friday night, they light one, and the menorah for Motzei Shabbos is already prepared, so they don't have to take time. To prepare your menorah takes 5 minutes. I mean, it's a job. Yeah. It's a job. It's not the hiding inside. We have these, the throwaway guys. What? It still takes time. Okay, what am I saying? But it's whatever. It's a happening, right? So they're saying that a person who has it there, and it's not mistapek if he bumps into Yosef Chaim's problem if he lights outside. Because in my apartment over here, I light downstairs on the Krisa. If I would have 2 rows there, so would I have a Yosef Chaim's problem? Or since it didn't bump into me in the face, that's not a problem. I'm not exactly sure how much in your face it has to be a problem. Right? That much was what Yosef Chaim told me. His wife greeted him with it. Already maybe not ready to light. Yeah. So what? I'm not arguing with you. When is? If it was not ready, so then you didn't bump into the mitzvah, right? Where you bumped into. And this is something which I've for many years wrestled with this issue: if there is such a thing as a menorah or not. I'm not even sure there's such a thing as a menorah. Such a thing as a menorah.
I think every wife should meet their husband that way.
Only on Motzei Shabbos?
Right.